Oh look, it's that time of the year again where I waffle on about random hand dryers I filmed within the last 12 months. And this year is the final year where I'm going to be making one of these videos, as I am completely and utterly disappointed with you all. Backstabbing me over some extremely petty drama involving DDJ? Seriously? Why did you collectively decide 2025 would be the year we make videos like this out of DDJ? Why is 2025 the year you all decided to speak in the most cryptic form of broken English? DDJ was just as much of an annoyance in 2023 and 2024, so why manufacture pointless drama this year? I am making this video for the few of you in the community who are still sticking to the original goal of filming and documenting hand dryers. This end of year video will be structured slightly differently to the previous end of year videos because of the minimal amount of content I filmed this year. It has also occurred to me that the end of year videos are more like a preview for upcoming content due to my video schedule. The Singapore videos I mentioned back in 2024 are scheduled to be uploaded sometime in February. Firstly, let's revisit Brighton Centre. If you remember from 2022, Brighton Centre had an extremely large collection of different hand dryers, including a combo of 5 1990s World Dryer RAs, one 2021 World Dryer Air Force in the gents main toilets, and an RA and ABO3 combo in the top floor gents, as well as several other rare hand dryers like this N&C branded Hotquang, this Ander 5000 and a Vortex. Have any of these dryers survived into 2025? Let's find out. Well, before I revisit those, let's quickly visit a toilet I didn't manage to film in 2022. This one being on the first floor on the right hand side. These toilets were actually recently refurbished, and they put in these horrible quariates. I didn't bother filming the quariates. However, the quariates were likely installed by the fit-out company and not by the Brighton Centre themselves. The main gents toilet still has the 5 RAs and the Air Force like it did in 2022, which is very nice to see. The top floor combo of the RA and ABO3 remains. However, the ABO3 has unfortunately died. The RA still works though, which shows just how robust these old world dryers are. The N&C Hotquang remains as well. And I even managed to film the Vortex properly this time, something I didn't manage to do in 2022. This hand dryer is extremely similar to the EcoCurve, in fact it even has the same sensor problem. And I managed to film this extra disabled toilet. I did visit a few extra toilets in the Brighton Centre, but they all had paper towels. Before we get to the very interesting things, let's quickly talk about a few places that opened this year. Firstly, Lidl in Brentford. This is a former Morrison's which closed down in 2023. I never filmed the dryers there as the toilets were absolutely disgusting, but all the dryers were Warner Howard branded World Dryer Air Forces. Red Warner Howard brand. Why do you have to do this, PHS? Anyway, the Lidl has just one toilet, and it is located in a completely different part of the shop. This toilet features a BioDryer BioLite, but every time I tried to film it, the dryer refused to work. Enthusiast431 has managed to film this dryer working. IKEA Hammersmith recently opened their new Swedish kitchen, closing down the old one and therefore the old toilet after just 3 years. The new Swedish kitchen has 2 unisex toilets and 1 disabled toilet. The disabled and one of the unisex toilets have PHS Airstreams, but the other unisex actually has an Airstream key. I wonder if this was a replacement for a Vitesse that died quickly after opening. Airstream keys used to be quite common in Debenhams, but we all know what happened to them. And they were never really installed by anyone else, so it's nice to see another key. Marks & Spencer's food hall in Chiswick reopened a few weeks ago from an extremely major refit, with a significantly increased size, now occupying the former Up and Running, Mini Velvet and Poundland units. To my absolute shock, a disabled cubicle was put in as part of the refurbishment, despite the store being a town centre one and not having toilets prior to this. I apologise for the poor video quality, but I wasn't planning on filming this. You can see that this toilet has the new Marks & Spencer design, as well as a Jet Towel Smart. I am not a big fan of this design. Here is the Vela Pebble Plus at the Crown and Anchor in Chiswick. For a very long time this pub was managed by Mitchells and Butlers, but it was recently sold off to another company. Up until 2013, this pub did not have any hand dryers. However, that year they put in some GSQ 250s branded as Probacks in all of the toilets. The one in the gents was replaced sometime in the late 2010s with a MacFlow branded as Initial. And, most recently in 2025, the MacFlow was replaced with the Vela Pebble Plus. The Probax Zinda thing still remains in the disabled toilet. What I find quite concerning is that following the transfer of ownership, this pub was given a 1-star food hygiene, despite constantly getting 5s whilst under Mitchells and Butlers. Now, let's talk about my recent visit to Prague. Prague is one of my favourite cities, and maybe I'm biased because I'm half Czech, but I find Prague to be much cleaner and much safer than many of the UK's major cities. Despite it being roughly the same size as Manchester, it is a capital city, and thus has significantly better infrastructure than Manchester, having full underground trains and trams at every corner. But what does this mean for hand dryers? Well, on the scale of paper towels everywhere to hand dryers everywhere, the Czech Republic falls somewhere in the middle. You can expect to see hand dryers in the majority of public toilets, shopping centres, chain restaurants and train stations, among other high traffic places, but do expect to see quite a lot of paper towels in other places such as independent restaurants and pubs. The airport has quite an interesting selection of dryers. There's 3 sets of toilets in Terminal 1. The first set has a combo of a Dyson Airblade DB and 9kJ, with the 9kJ obviously replacing a previous hands-in Dyson. When I visited this set in 2017 there were 2 Dyson ABO1s here. The second set has just 1 DB. Again, also replacing a previous ABO1. I also filmed the disabled of this set, which had one of those weird Magnum things. Magnum Zinda Auto Boy Dryer in Indian Boy. I've had a suspicion for years that these might be modified Saniflows, but I'm still not sure. The third set is quite weird, as it is made up of a few individual cubicles. Some labelled disabled, some labelled ladies, and one labelled as gents. All of these have paper towels except for the gents cubicle, which has an ABO1. Interestingly, this ABO1 has the newer labelling, which means the ABO3 was already out when the airport decided to put these in. ABO1s made after the ABO3 are quite rare, however the first hand dryer I ever filmed was one of these newer ABO1s. Now we exit the shopping centre and enter Palladium, one of the largest shopping centres in the city. There are 2 sets of toilets in this shopping centre. However, I only filmed one of them. Rather bizarrely, both of these toilets were made paid access in 2025, now requiring 20 crowns or €1. However, you can still gain free access if you have the Euro key. The Euro key is Germany's answer to the radar key, and has been adopted in several other surrounding countries such as the Czech Republic. In the Czech Republic, the Euro key is absolutely everywhere, and since I didn't own one, this limited how many disabled toilets I could actually film. According to Wikipedia, there are Euro key toilets in France and Spain. However, I didn't see any when I went there. Anyway, Palladium's food court toilets has a gents combo of a HEPA branding HUO2 and ABO8. I remember visiting these toilets well over 10 years ago, and they have Mediclinic Saniflows. This pub has one of these hands-in things. Get used to them as they are extremely common here. This pub is also part of Prague's community toilet scheme, which means the toilets are completely free and anyone can walk up to them. Now, it's wonderful to see that McDonald's just hate installing good hand dryers no matter what country you're in. This hand dryer is a King's Dry JXG250, which is a knockoff of the Quarriot K250, which is a knockoff of the Zinda GSQ250, which is a knockoff of the Mediclinic Saniflow, which is a knockoff of the A48. As you can imagine, this hand dryer is complete rubbish, but interestingly sounds like a PHS Ultra Dry when in use. And also, just take a minute to appreciate this distributor logo. Unfortunately, this hand dryer had a heating element. And of course, the most important chain of them all, Tesco. The Czech Republic is one of just 5 countries where Tesco operate, the other 4 being Hungary, Slovakia, Ireland and of course the UK. Irish Tesco's have been extensively filmed by Mr. Benefit sinks, and typically they have the same hand dryers as UK Tesco's, though with a slightly higher chance of finding an ATC dryer. So what do Czech Tesco's have? Well, the one I visited had no toilets in it as it was part of the shopping centre, but let's take a little look at the shopping centre's website. Recognise the font at all? That's right. Not only do Tesco own this shopping centre, they also have their head offices in here as well. Now, what dryers are in this building? Well, there's 3 sets of toilets and I filmed the gents in all 3. The ground floor toilets have been refurbished and feature a pair of Mark 1 DBs, whilst the 2 upper floors have not been refurbished and feature HEPA branded HUO2s. I find it interesting that Tesco would put HUO2s here, but not in the UK. Do they just not trust Brits with Dysons? Also, this Tesco had a major refurbishment in 2025 and features a radically new design not featured in any other Tesco. Could the brand new Tesco in Osterley feature this design? And now to the toilets in the metro stations. For a very long time, the metro featured absolutely vile toilets and often featured Stiebel Eltron hand dryers. In fact, Stiebel Eltrons were very common hand dryers in the Czech Republic a few years back. However, many of them have been replaced with high speeds. In fact, I didn't manage to find any when I went. Almost all the metro toilets have been heavily refurbished. These toilets require 10 crowns or €0.50 for access. Cheaper and, in my opinion, better value than the shopping centres. All of the refurbished toilets feature these weird hands-in hand dryers which look a bit like Veltia hand dryers, but are not. I also visited Prague Zoo, which is nearly twice the size of London Zoo and yet has a website that is stuck in 2014. To avoid the video getting too long, I'll quickly go over what I saw. Plenty of these hands-in things, a pair of induction dispensers used to remove condensation from sunglasses, the Italian hand dryer that inspired the Richmond porcelain to remove condensation from sunglasses, some Dyson DBs, and this hand dryer which I'm presuming is an Ike. I also found some of those Frank Hockwang things, but I didn't manage to take a picture of any of them. And now we get to the most interesting part of the trip. When I visited Prague in 2012, I visited this Starbucks. Now, I vividly remember this Starbucks having PHS Ultra Dry LEs in chrome, which is incredibly strange as PHS have only ever sold dryers in the UK, Ireland and Spain. Part of me thinks I might be misremembering some other dryer like the JVD Zephyr, but I vividly remember this hand dryer sounding like an Ultra Dry. I had high hopes for this dryer remaining as the Starbucks hasn't been refurbished since. So I went to the toilet and it's been replaced. How sad. Quite a disappointing end to the trip, but at least the last video I filmed before going back to London was the ABO one, so it's okay. From one city to another, here is Norwich. Norwich, like Prague, is a very clean, safe and historic city, though Norwich is much smaller. I'd state another thing Prague and Norwich share in common, however I don't want to elaborate, so I won't say it. Now, Norwich has been heavily filmed, so I'll only talk about the things that haven't been filmed yet. For example, the hotel I stayed at, which had a pair of under 5000s with Wandsworth branding. This was quite a pleasant surprise, especially since both are in good condition. However, the disabled had a K2009, which I didn't bother filming. I appear to be the only person who has filmed the Kingwees at the gents toilet at Norwich Market, though the disabled A48 and previous gents A48 have been filmed. And of course, the table by the river hasn't been filmed either. When I went, almost every toilet was out of order, so I was only able to film the disabled cubicle, which had a very early China-made World Dryer XA. You can tell because this hand dryer has the old Warner Howard label design, but the newer XA startup and motor sound. And now for a rather strange dream I had. A few months ago I had this extremely strange dream where I visited a Sainsbury's store. This Sainsbury's store looked mostly normal, with nothing out of the ordinary. That is, until I visited the toilets. Whilst the toilets on the outside looked like a normal Sainsbury's one, The toilets themselves had a radically different design, with the only similarities being the ceiling, flooring, shape of the sinks unit, and the toilet doors. The door to the ladies' toilet was open, and I managed to spot an extremely bizarre combo of a Warner Howard branded Air Force, Canon Eco Zinder, an SM48-820, and an initial F5 Eco. The gents also had a combo with two Canon Ecos, one SM48-820, and the disabled had an HK2400. And you want to know the best part? I made this up. And I don't mean I made up this whole dream. I mean this is an actual toilet setup that exists. This is the Sainsbury's Saver Centre in Collier's Wood, and it was the largest Sainsbury's store when it opened. Between 2006 and 2008, the store was heavily refurbished, and around 40% of the store turned into Marks and Spencer's. No, I'm not joking. The toilets are technically outside both stores, so the toilets are likely managed by whoever owns the building rather than Sainsbury's. This is very similar to the Tesco and M&S in Handforth, which features Tesco-style toilet exteriors, but HK2400 hand dryers. But if you thought the weirdness ended there, you're mistaken, as Saver Centre also has toilets within Marks and Spencer's. These are in Marks and Spencer's 2000 style, and they are in nearly perfect condition. The disabled toilet features a .8 accelerator. The sticker is missing on this dot unit. But the gents' toilet features a pair of Mitsubishi Jet Towel 8s. Whilst not unusual for this era, this is the only M&S store I've been to which plays music in the gents' toilets. One of the sinks also features a weird special tap which produces filtered drinking water. Honestly, Saver Centre is such a strange place, and I hope they don't knock it down to turn it into a redevelopment hell like the rest of London's weird buildings have. And that's the end of 2025. And also, the last year I'll be making an end of year video. As I am completely and utterly disappointed with you all, I will be sunsetting hand dryer content. There won't be any more innovation when it comes to my hand dryer content, and I only have a few more locations I plan on filming. Since I won't be making an end of 2026 video, I'll go over them here. I want to try and film a little bit more of Surrey as it is quite undocumented, and most importantly, I want to visit this strange little part of the UK which is just underneath Spain. That's right, Gibraltar. Gibraltar seems to share many UK shops like Marks and Spencer's, Costa and even Morrison's, but with Spanish architecture and some chains from Spain as well, such as Eroski. Before we continue to the predictions section, I want to quickly give a dishonourable mention to Irish hand dryers. Arguably the one who ruined the hand dryer community. Why? Well, he aggressively copies other YouTubers, invites several non-hand dryer enthusiasts into the community to create pointless fights with DDJ, is incredibly obsessed with pushing out his stupid membership to everyone, is incredibly racist, and, the worst of all, the reason he's in Ireland. For you see, he's not actually Irish at all, he's from that weird Russian majority town of Latvia. Of course, to the surprise of no one, he cannot speak a word of Latvian, let alone Irish. His English skills are poor, and of course, you guessed it, his first language is Russian. Now, why is he in Ireland? Well, this screenshot should answer your bloody question, shouldn't it? Well, both of those things happened in 2025. In fact, several Smart Dry Pluses have been found. And PHS did indeed release a brand new hand dryer, that being the Airstream Nano. What I didn't predict though was this absolutely hideous rebrand with this ugly logo, and I mean, what even is this? Something else rather interesting happened. The Dyson Airblade DB was relaunched in November with the HUO2's motor. I would say I predict one will be found in 2026, but one was already found by ZLG. And that's the end of 2025 and my hand dryer end of year retrospectives. Do not worry, there's still lots of hand dryer videos coming your way, including many finds not even discussed in this video. Thanks for watching.